They will tell everyone that you changed. They will describe the silence, the distance, the unanswered messages, and the unfamiliar look in your eyes. They will remember the day you stopped caring, but conveniently forget the years they spent teaching you that caring came with a punishment. Because a good person rarely becomes cold overnight. The transformation happens quietly. It happens every time they forgive without receiving an apology, every time they hide their pain to protect someone else's comfort, every time their kindness is mistaken for weakness and their loyalty is treated like something that can never expire. Then one day, something happens. It may not be the greatest betrayal they have survived. It may not be the cruelest sentence ever spoken to them. From the outside, it may appear almost insignificant, but inside them, it closes a door. And suddenly, the person who once explained everything says nothing. The person who always returned stops looking back. The person who felt too deeply begins to feel almost nothing. So what actually happens inside the mind of a good person when warmth becomes detachment? Why do they stop reacting? And why do the same people who created the change become the first to complain about it? This documentary follows that transformation through 6 chapters. Stay until the end, because the final chapter reveals something most people misunderstand. Becoming cold may stop the pain, but it does not necessarily mean you have healed. If you are interested in the hidden forces that shape human behavior, subscribe to Mind Trap. This is Mind Trap. Chapter 1. The Person Who Always Gives. Before the coldness, there was usually a person who felt everything. They noticed changes in someone's voice. They remembered small details. They could sense tension before an argument began and often accepted the responsibility of restoring peace, even when they had not caused the conflict. Their goodness was not merely something they did, it became part of their identity. They wanted to be known as patient, loyal, understanding, and dependable. When other people became angry, they remained calm. When someone disappeared, they waited. When promises were broken, they searched for explanations that made the betrayal easier to forgive. Perhaps they had learned early that love required sacrifice. Perhaps they grew up believing that being useful made them valuable. They discovered that people praised them when they were obedient, quiet, forgiving, and emotionally convenient. So they became experts at carrying what other people refused to carry. They confused endurance with strength. They confused constant forgiveness with emotional maturity. They believed that if they continued showing kindness, eventually others would recognize its value and return it. But kindness without boundaries creates a dangerous imbalance. The good person becomes the listener, but is rarely heard. They become the rescuer, but are abandoned during their own emergencies. They make room for everyone else's emotions while slowly removing themselves from the room. At first, this feels noble. They tell themselves that they are simply stronger, more understanding, or less selfish than those around them. But underneath that goodness, something else is growing. Exhaustion. Every time they say, "It's okay," when it is not okay, they abandon a small part of themselves. Every time they forgive behavior that continues unchanged, they teach others that forgiveness has no conditions. The world sees a peaceful person. It does not see the invisible war required to maintain that peace. Chapter 2. When kindness becomes an expectation. People appreciate kindness most when they believe they might lose it. But when kindness appears unlimited, appreciation often becomes expectation. The first time the good person helps, others are grateful. The 10th time, they assume help will arrive. Eventually, what was once considered generosity becomes an obligation. The moment the good person says no, they are treated as though they have taken something away. This is how emotional exploitation becomes normalized. It rarely begins with obvious cruelty. It begins with small tests. Someone breaks a minor promise and receives another chance. They speak disrespectfully and are quickly forgiven. They disappear when needed, then return with an explanation that the good person desperately wants to believe. Each forgiven violation quietly moves the boundary. The other person learns that apologies can replace change. They learn that temporary affection can erase repeated neglect. They learn that the good person may complain, cry, or threaten to leave, but will probably remain. This does not mean every act of kindness invites exploitation. It means kindness without consequences can accidentally protect harmful behavior from its natural results. The good person is no longer valued for who they are. They are valued for what they tolerate. Their patience becomes a hiding place for irresponsible people. Their loyalty becomes protection for disloyal people. Their empathy becomes a weapon used against them. Whenever they finally confront the behavior, they are reminded of the other person's suffering. You know what I've been through. I didn't mean it that way. You're overthinking everything. And because the good person understands pain, they begin defending the person who caused theirs. They examine their tone. They question their expectations. They wonder if asking for respect is somehow demanding too much. Meanwhile, resentment begins forming beneath their kindness. Resentment is often the emotional evidence of a boundary that should have been enforced much earlier. But good people frequently fear their own anger. They think anger will make them cruel, selfish, or similar to the people who hurt them. So instead of expressing it honestly, they bury it. Buried anger does not disappear, it hardens. And eventually, the person who was afraid to become angry becomes too exhausted to feel anything at all. Chapter 3. The warnings nobody notices. The change begins long before the final goodbye. The good person usually gives warnings, but those warnings do not always sound like threats. They sound like repeated conversations. I need you to listen. This is hurting me. I cannot keep doing this. Something between us is changing. At first, they explain themselves carefully. They provide examples, soften their language, and choose their words to avoid causing unnecessary pain. When nothing changes, their explanations become shorter. Then the messages become shorter. Then the silence becomes longer. People often mistake this silence for acceptance. They believe the conflict has ended because the good person is no longer arguing. But sometimes silence does not mean peace. It means the person has stopped believing that communication can produce change. They begin withdrawing their emotional investment. They no longer share every detail of their day. They stop asking difficult questions because they already know the answers will be incomplete. They stop requesting reassurance because reassurance without consistent behavior has become meaningless. They may still smile. They may still help. They may even continue saying, "I'm fine." But their presence has changed. They are physically in the room while emotionally standing near the exit. This stage can last for weeks, months, or even years. They are not fully gone because part of them is still waiting for evidence that leaving emotionally would be a mistake. One sincere apology might reach them. One consistent change might restore hope. One moment of being truly understood might prove that their pain mattered. But instead, the people around them often respond only when their access begins to disappear. They do not notice the exhaustion. They notice the reduced attention. They do not notice the sadness. They notice the unanswered call. They do not ask, "What happened to your warmth?" They ask, "Why are you treating me differently?" This question reveals the problem. They are focused on how the change affects them, not on what caused the change inside the person they claim to care about. By the time others notice the distance, the good person may have already grieved the relationship in private. The eventual departure only makes visible what ended internally long ago. Chapter 4. The moment something breaks. Then comes the final incident. People assume the breaking point must be dramatic, a devastating betrayal, a public humiliation, or an unforgivable lie. Sometimes it is, but often the final incident appears surprisingly small. It could be another forgotten promise, another disrespectful comment, another moment when the good person reaches for support and finds nobody there. The event looks small because observers are looking only at the final wound. They do not see everything beneath it. Imagine a bridge carrying more weight every day. The final vehicle crossing it may not be the heaviest one. It is simply the one that arrives after the structure has already been weakened beyond recovery. The bridge does not collapse because of one vehicle. It collapses because of accumulated damage. The human mind can respond in a similar way. Repeated disappointments create emotional fatigue. The person keeps adapting, forgiving, and lowering expectations. Eventually, the mind decides that hope itself has become dangerous. That is the true breaking point. Not when they stop loving, but when they stop believing their love can exist safely in that environment. Something becomes clear to them. The apology will arrive, but the behavior will return. The affection will appear when they withdraw, then disappear when they become available again. The conversation will produce promises, but not transformation. For years, they may have been trapped between reality and potential, between who the other person repeatedly proved themselves to be and who the good person believed they could become. The final incident destroys that imagined future. For the first time, they stop looking at potential and accept the pattern. This acceptance can feel strangely calm. There may be no dramatic argument, no final speech, no desire to prove who was right. The nervous system is simply finished, spending energy on a battle it no longer believes can be won. The good person looks at the situation and understands that another explanation will only become another opportunity for their words to be ignored. So they stop explaining. To everyone else, their silence looks sudden, but inside them, it is the conclusion of a conversation that has been happening for years. Chapter 5. Emotional coldness as protection. Emotional coldness is not always the absence of emotion. Sometimes it is emotion placed behind a locked door. When a person experiences repeated disappointment, the mind begins searching for protection. If expressing pain does not bring comfort, it may reduce expression. If trust repeatedly leads to betrayal, it may begin treating closeness as a threat. This is emotional detachment. The person limits emotional involvement to reduce the possibility of being injured again. They expect less, reveal less, and depend on fewer people. From the outside, they may appear powerful. Nothing surprises them. Insults receive no reaction. People leave and they do not chase. Promises are heard without being believed. But this apparent strength has a hidden cost. Emotional numbness does not carefully remove only painful feelings. It can also weaken joy, connection, curiosity, and affection. The wall built to keep betrayal outside can trap tenderness inside. The good person may become suspicious of genuine kindness because manipulation once arrived wearing the same face. They may reject healthy people for crimes committed by unhealthy ones. They may leave at the first sign of conflict because their mind has learned that small warning signs eventually become disasters. They call it intuition. Sometimes it is intuition. Sometimes it is an old wound predicting that every new story will end like the previous one. Coldness can also create a feeling of control. When they care deeply, other people could influence their emotional state. A message could change their entire day. Silence could create anxiety. Rejection could make them question their value. Detachment seems to remove that power. If I need nobody, nobody can abandon me. If I trust nobody, nobody can betray me. If I feel nothing, nothing can hurt me. These beliefs can create short-term safety, but they also create long-term isolation. The person survives by becoming inaccessible. This is why emotional coldness should not automatically be romanticized as strength. It may be a necessary temporary defense, especially after prolonged mistreatment, but a permanent defense can become another kind of prison. The goal is not to return to the version of themselves who tolerated everything. That person was warm, but unprotected. The goal is to become someone capable of warmth and protection at the same time. Someone who can love without abandoning themselves. Someone who can forgive without granting unlimited access. Someone who can recognize another person's pain without volunteering to become its victim. Chapter 6. When everyone blames the changed person. Once the good person becomes cold, the accusations begin. You have changed. You only care about yourself now. You used to be different. These statements may be true. They have changed. But the accusation leaves out the environment that made change necessary. The people who benefited from their lack of boundaries may describe boundaries as cruelty. Those who enjoyed constant access may call distance selfishness. Those who never took their pain seriously may suddenly become deeply concerned about their attitude. They miss the older version. Not always because they loved that person more, but because that person was easier to use. The older version answered immediately, forgave quickly, accepted weak explanations, continued giving after becoming empty. The new version asks questions. The new version notices patterns. The new version understands that history with someone does not guarantee them permanent access. This change can make other people uncomfortable because it forces them to face consequences they avoided for years. So they rewrite the story. Instead of admitting, "I repeatedly hurt someone who cared about me," they say, "That person became heartless." Blaming the changed person protects them from examining their own behavior. However, the good person must also remain honest. Not everyone who enters their life is responsible for what happened in the past. Boundaries are necessary, but punishing innocent people is not healing. Discernment protects the heart. Permanent hostility only continues the damage in another form. There is a difference between becoming difficult to exploit and becoming incapable of connection. One is growth. The other is pain wearing armor. A good person does not become emotionally cold because goodness suddenly disappears. They become cold because their goodness existed for too long without protection. They gave chances after the lesson was already clear. They remained loyal to people who were loyal only to their usefulness. They continued explaining their pain to people who understood it perfectly but benefited from pretending they did not. Eventually, distance became the only language that worked. But coldness is not the final stage of healing. It is often the space between being repeatedly wounded and learning how to live without abandoning yourself. Healing does not mean reopening every closed door. It does not mean becoming available to those who proved they could not handle your trust. It means understanding that you can protect your peace without destroying your capacity to feel. You can become selective without becoming cruel. You can say no without feeling guilty. You can leave without hatred. You can remember what happened without forcing every new person to pay for it. The strongest version of a good person is not the one who tolerates everything. It is also not the one who feels nothing. It is the person who remains capable of love, but no longer confuses love with self-destruction. Their heart is still warm. Access is simply no longer free. So when someone tells you that you have changed, do not immediately accept it as an insult. Ask what changed. Did you become heartless? Or did you finally stop handing your heart to people who treated it like it could never break? Because sometimes the moment a good person becomes emotionally cold is not the moment they lose themselves. It is the moment they realize how much of themselves they have already lost. And real healing begins when they recover that person, not as someone endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, and endlessly silent, but as someone warm enough to love, wise enough to recognize danger, and strong enough to close the door before kindness becomes self-betrayal.